My hands were shaking before my feet even moved. 312 people were locked in a cold customs hold, 2 kilometers behind me, and I had 4 minutes before the guard patrol turned back around the dock. My name is Maya Okoye, and I was standing in a place I was never supposed to be. The dockyard belonged to the Vashtor, a species that stood 4 meters tall, covered in hard plates, with jaws strong enough to crush metal. On their home planet, nothing had ever hunted them, not once, in their whole history. That single fact shaped everything about how they thought, how they moved, and how they judged every creature they met. I was counting on that fact to save my people. I slipped between 2 tall storage containers, my boots silent against the cold floor. That is when I heard something behind me, a soft, steady sound, like several small feet moving together. I turned around fast, ready to send whoever it was back the way they came, and found 6 children from our ship trailing behind me in a tight, careful line. The oldest was a girl named Leah, only 9 years old, but she carried herself like someone twice her age. She lifted her chin toward the guard tower ahead of us and whispered that more eyes meant a safer path. I did not have time to argue. I had 3 minutes left. We moved together. I want to be clear about one thing. Nobody trained these children to move like that. No one taught them to walk without sound or to check every corner before stepping into it. But when a whole generation grows up on a ship where danger can appear at any moment, children learn certain habits early. Quiet feet, watching corners, staying close but never bunched together. Those habits, which we taught only for survival, looked like something else entirely to the eyes watching us that night. The first guard we passed never noticed us at all. His scanner picked up 6 small heat signatures, moving in a tight, disciplined pattern, and something in his mind flagged it as unusual before he could even think about why. By the time his brain caught up with his instincts, we were already gone, hidden behind a wide metal pipe, breathing slow and quiet. The second guard was not so easy to slip past. He turned toward us fast, his jaw opening wide in warning, and found himself staring straight at Leah. She did not run. She did not look away. I had taught her, back on our ship, that looking away from something bigger than you was often the fastest way to end up in serious trouble. I had meant it as advice for narrow hallways and locked storage rooms. I never imagined it would matter here, in front of a fully armed guard 3 times her height. Behind her, the other 5 children spread out into a loose half-circle around his sides, moving without a single word passing between them. It was as if they had rehearsed this 100 times, though none of us had ever practiced anything like it. The guard did not shout. He did not call for backup. Instead, he took 1 small step backward. Just one. But it was enough. I watched centuries of instinct override his training in a single heartbeat. On his planet, nothing stepped forward with that kind of calm. Nothing looked at a Vashtor guard without fear. His whole body seemed to be asking a question his mind did not want to answer. A voice came through his comm device, asking for a status report. His answer was quiet and a little unsteady. He said there was no unusual activity to report. A false alarm. Nothing more. We reached the fence line 4 minutes and 40 seconds after I had started moving, which should have ended everything right there. Instead, the 2 guards who had seen us said nothing to anyone. They were too busy turning the moment over in their own minds, wondering what kind of creature raises its young to move like that without even trying. Inside the maintenance shed, I found the old communication relay, exactly where our scouts had marked it. My hands moved fast over the controls, code after code, while the children stood guard at the door in the same quiet formation, watching the open yard outside. Every second felt stretched thin, like a wire pulled too tight. I kept expecting alarms, lights, running footsteps. None of it came. The relay flickered to life, just as a heavy patrol vehicle rolled past outside, its engine humming low. I froze, one hand still on the console, watching its lights sweep across the gap in the doorway. Leah did not move an inch, neither did the others. They stood perfectly still, the way they had been taught during drills on the ship, and the vehicle rolled on without slowing down. The moment it passed, I finished the connection. A single signal shot out into the dark sky, carrying coordinates, and a short message meant for anyone from our side still listening. It was our only chance to call for rescue, and it was done. We left the shed the same way we entered, quiet and careful, weaving between shadows and storage units. My mind kept circling back to the guard who had stepped away from a 9-year-old girl. I still could not fully explain it, even though I had seen it happen with my own eyes. Halfway back toward the hold where the rest of our people waited, a third guard stepped out from behind a fuel tank, directly in our path. This one was younger, faster, and clearly less willing to doubt himself. He raised an alarm device in one clawed hand, ready to press it. For a moment, no one moved. Then a boy named Owen, barely 7 years old, stepped forward from the group and looked straight up at the guard without any hesitation at all. He did not say a word. He simply stood there, calm and steady, the way he had seen Leah do only minutes earlier. The guard hesitated, his hand hovering over the alarm. Something about the boy's stillness seemed to confuse him more than any threat could have. In that pause, another child, a small girl named Grace, quietly slipped to his side, followed by 2 more children, closing in from behind, forming the same tight formation we had used before. I stepped forward slowly, keeping my hands visible and my voice low and even. I told him, in the simple trade language most guards understood, that we meant no harm and only wanted to leave quietly. I said it the way you would speak to someone you respected, not someone you feared. His eyes moved from me to the children surrounding him, then back again. He lowered the alarm device. He did not explain why. He simply stepped aside and let us pass, his gaze following us the entire way, filled with a kind of confusion I could not name. I did not wait to see if he changed his mind. We kept walking until the hold came into view, its heavy door illuminated by dim emergency lights. Inside, the rest of our people were waiting exactly where we had left them, tired but hopeful. When the door opened and they saw us return safely, along with all 6 children, quiet relief spread through the room like a wave. No cheering, no loud celebration, just the shared understanding that we had made it through one more impossible moment together. Before we reached the hold, one more obstacle stood between us and safety. A wide-open yard stretched out ahead, lit by bright overhead lights, with no containers or shadows to hide behind. Scanning drones moved slowly across the sky above it, sweeping the ground below in steady patterns. Crossing it meant walking in full view for almost a full minute, longer than any of us wanted to risk. I studied the pattern of the drones, counting seconds between each sweep. There was a small gap, barely enough time to cross if we moved without hesitation. I looked down at the children, all 6 of them watching me, waiting for a signal. I told them we would move together, in one steady line, the moment the closest drone turned away. Leah nodded, and quietly repeated the plan to the younger ones in a soft voice, making sure everyone understood. Owen and Grace held hands without being asked, and the other 3 children lined up behind them, their eyes fixed on the drone above. When the moment came, we crossed the yard together, moving fast but controlled, none of us breaking stride or looking up at the lights. My heart pounded with every step, counting down the seconds in my head, waiting for an alarm that never came. We reached the far side just as the drone completed its turn, sweeping back over empty ground behind us. For a moment, none of us spoke. We simply stood there, catching our breath in the shadow of a low wall, letting the silence settle around us. Grace let out a small, quiet laugh, quickly covering her mouth with both hands, and even in that tense moment, I felt a flicker of relief pass through the group. We did not stop for long. I knew every extra second in the open increased our risk, so we moved again, keeping close to the wall until the hold finally came into view ahead of us, its dim lights welcoming and familiar. Hours later, after the rescue ship had responded to our signal and everyone had been moved to safety, I sat with Leah in a quiet corner of our new transport. She asked me why the big guard had stepped back from her earlier that night. I thought about how to explain it simply. I told her that somewhere deep inside that guard, an old and very loud instinct had told him she already believed she would win, and that belief alone was enough to make him uncertain. She thought about that answer for a long moment, her expression caught somewhere between pride and surprise. Then she smiled, and asked if we would need to do something like that again soon. I did not have an answer for her, not yet, but watching her sit there, calm and unafraid after everything we had just survived, I understood something important about the children growing up around us. They were not being raised as soldiers or fighters. They were simply learning to move through danger with quiet confidence, because that was the only world they had ever known. Whatever came next for us, wherever we ended up rebuilding our lives, I knew those small, steady footsteps behind me that night had saved us all. And somewhere back at that dockyard, a guard was probably still trying to understand why he had stepped away from a child who never once looked afraid. Days later, as our transport settled into a quiet route through open space, word of what happened at the dockyard began to spread among our people. Nobody exaggerated the story or added anything false to it. They did not need to. The plain truth of 6 children walking calmly past armed guards was remarkable enough on its own. An older man named Peter, who had spent years studying the Vashtor before the war, forced him onto our ship, asked me to describe exactly what I had seen. When I finished, he sat quietly for a while before speaking. He explained that the Vashtor had never once, in their recorded history, faced a creature that did not fear them. Their entire society was built on that single certainty. What we had shown them, without meaning to, was a crack in something they believed could never break. I did not know what to do with that information at first. It felt too large, too important for a group of tired refugees still learning to trust their next meal or their next safe sleep. But watching the children play quietly in the transport's common room, laughing softly over some simple game, I realized they carried no weight from what had happened. To them, it was simply another night they had gotten through together. Maybe that was the real difference between us and the Vashtor. Fear had never been the thing holding my people together. It was trust, quiet discipline, and the simple habit of watching out for one another, even when no one asked them to. The children had not tried to appear fearless that night. They had simply been themselves, exactly as we had raised them to be. As the stars moved slowly past the window beside me, I found myself hoping that somewhere out there, other guards on other worlds would learn the same lesson that Dockyard had learned. Not through force, and not through any show of strength, but through quiet, steady footsteps that refused to back down.